looking forward to having a psychotherapist interview me.
Welcome. Thank you, Patrice. I'm gonna love this session. I'm sure. Welcome to this interview, everyone, of Patrice Porter, also known as the Gardening Grandma, who has developed this unique personal brand centered around sustainable gardening, family connections, and education. Welcome, Patrice. Thank you for being here with us.
All right. And I always love sharing about gardening and what a difference that it can actually make in folks' lives, more than you may think.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, what is your personal story with that? Is there something that started this journey for you, like your transition from formal education to becoming the gardening grandma?
Well, I've always been quite passionate about gardening and having also another passion. I love working with kids and working in the educational system. I I wanted to kind of impart my knowledge
Mm.
and expertise, and one area was with gardening and working with the kids. I was in a unique position where I could see the potential of the kids there and
Mhm.
nurture it, and then I get to watch them blossom. And
Mhm.
so that idea, it was also in the educational field. It was a child-centered program. And to me, it was like you get to open new worlds to them. So if
Mhm.
I could open the world of gardening to them, that just, it was marvelous to me. So I picked up, became the gardening grandma. I'm that person. If you don't have someone in your life to show you how to garden and grow your own food, I'll be that person. And I know like a lot of the kids, like they might not have a gardening grandma figure in their life. So I could also be that for them. And gardening, it's kind of an old-fashioned skill. So that's why the gardening grandma came about and why my passion is sharing that. I love to open the world of gardening to anybody, but especially to the kids. They're actually, I'm going to share, I've got a favorite quote. It's from
Mhm.
Robert Brault, and he says, "Why try to explain a miracle to a child when you can just teach them how to garden?" That's
Oh,
it.
I love that. Oh, I love the quote. And yeah, it's definitely a journey into oneself when one steps out in nature, because we are so connected with nature. Absolutely.
And
And I'm
that's the big part is that with gardening, it gives the kids that chance to have an up-close connection with
Mm,
nature. Like you're part of the growing process.
yeah.
And especially in the age where there's a lot of disconnect and they spend so much time on those devices, it's a wonderful change. Bring them back to the natural world.
Yeah, we spend time on children, this generation, spending time on devices, spending time on asphalt
Yeah.
and with shoes that are not grounding and not connecting with nature, not drawing energy and information. Absolutely. It's a very powerful area that you've started, this niche, this track. I'm wondering if there was any event that sparked, like what made you pivot, any experience, any particular series of events, something that led to you creating this track
Okay.
in an educational way.
One, again, I was working with the kids
Mm-hmm.
and I was also working with Dr. Lant, and we had an online writing course, and he was a marvelous uh, master in the craft of writing. And it made me fall in love with the medium of books. So I wrote a book series. This is one of the in the series. The series is Bringing Out the Potential of Children. And
I
this
love it.
is the one as gardeners. But so I had three different books in that series. And then I fell in love with course creation. And so I wanted to have it built around again. Like I've got a wealth of knowledge around gardening, like a wealth. I anything gardening, I just absorb it. And with all the experts and the old timers, I'd pick their brains and yeah, it's so but again, there's I was first going to do it just for adults and the gardening course, let them have that self-sufficiency with gardening. And there was someone who had done a really beautiful program, so it was like, I'll just be her affiliate. My focus is on the kids.
Mhm.
So I built out the Got Dirt Gardening for Kids program. And that's where they get to come on a gardening adventure with the gardening grandma, and I bring them into my gardens, and I really enjoy that. And then it evolved again. I was finding like the kids, they were really kind of the traditional education system. It wasn't serving them very well, and it was kind of lacking. So I wanted to do something to enhance their educational experience. And I found like they can learn their math, science, literacy right along while they're learning that life skill of gardening.
Yeah.
So I made an extension off the Got Dirt Gardening for Kids program. It became Roots to Learning, Academic Lessons Within Gardening. And there, then they're learning, in that hands-on, practical skill of gardening, but right along with it, they're learning their math, science, and literacy, and they're learning that in real life situations. And I know for myself, I learn better that way. If I'm learning in a real life situation, it'll stick because I'm using it.
Yeah. Wow, I love it. You definitely turned growing plants into a vehicle for personal development. It's for most people, it's just a hobby. For you, it's a curricular platform. It's education, it's connection, and I know you involve parents as well in this process. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you're helping them mentor their children?
Well, I like to say that, gardening, it's more than just growing that fresh, nutritious food. You can also be growing wholesome kids. And I like to see the parents see that, you can have your child go on that trajectory of being independent, responsible, build
Mhm.
some patience, some delayed gratification in this world of instant gratification, all through that simple act of gardening. And so I love that, keeping that focus and just letting people see, gardening doesn't have to be a chore. And with the kids, like with the kids, I start off, I ask them like, what type of garden do you want to have? And because I want it to be a place where they're going to enjoy spending their time in, and they're going to be growing things they want to grow. So they'll be willing to put that effort in. And it's so funny, like the ideas they come up with. My grandniece, she said, I want a Halloween garden. And I said, okay, well, you've got the white-skinned pumpkins. They look just like ghosts in the pumpkin patch. And then she said, I want sweets in my garden. And I thought, and I had a stevia plant, which is 10 times sweeter than sugar. So we made a cutting of that. So she had sweets in her garden, and she wanted a black cat silhouette. So I actually had a black cat silhouette. We stuck that and orange and black colored flower themes, and she had her Halloween garden. And another little boy, he said, I want to have an indoor tree garden. And I thought, I know I used to love growing. I took a date seed and I grew it into a date palm, and I'd take avocados and grow them into trees. And I loved having growing trees, any seeds I could get going. But also bonsais,
Mm,
typically for an indoor tree garden. So he was happy, but it's an
perfect.
idea to spark that creativity in the kids, and it becomes more the ownership of it. It's like it's their garden, and and encourage the parents, let them show it off, take lots of pictures, because that's really motivating if they know, it's being acknowledged, and they're getting some attention from that, and so it's a whole different field than just being a chore that you have to go out and do.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're working with their strengths. I love that. This aligns very much with my approach, and you may not know that when I first started, I worked with children with autism, with special needs across, 4 countries like Romania, US, Canada, Puerto Rico. But starting at 2 to 3 years of age was my first population to 7, and then later to 12 and 14 and stuff. And working with their strengths, it's truly the one thing that keeps them present and hooked to the activity. So absolutely fantastic. Our perspectives align so well, and you draw the best in them when you do that, when you create something that is within their vision that feels very personal. I love this. To be more specific in terms of, I'm curious about how you're using gardening activities for emotional regulation, or how you're aligning curriculum development, your previous specialty with gardening activities. Can you give me some examples of those?
Well, the I actually worked in what was called the Play and Exploration
Ah,
program. So it's all about play.
yes. Yes, even in the adult world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, but it's also too like recognizing the kids shine when they
Mm,
shine, the areas that they shine in, they're little bits of genius, and you're picking up on that,
mhm,
and then you can scaffold them to new levels.
mm,
And like for emotionally and that, like especially for the teens, that their peers and stuff like that, it's so important. But I find like gardening, it really gives them something to talk about if they can grow some real unique things, or even the opportunity for intergenerational experiences,
mhm,
that like a more elderly person, they might have a garden that they can't keep anymore. But a younger, healthier person, they'd be happy to go and garden in their plot and share
mhm.
some of the produce, but then they can pick up on the all the wisdoms from the elder person, and the elderly person gets to enjoy that fresh nutritious food again from their garden. And so there's so many aspects that it can branch off into that I
Yeah,
just,
and I
it's
think
just a matter of opening people's
yeah,
eyes to that possibilities.
yeah, and I think with this you were speaking to the mentoring quality and this transgenerational bond that truly in the modern society it has faded out. We don't have the same nucleus, the same structure. We don't have the same interconnection in the family group. And I think your gardening opens them up to this skipping one generation and bonding and creating the framework. And you also answered to a question I didn't get to ask, which is awesome, which was, do you work differently with different age groups in the gardening activities? And it sounds like there's a skill set that you would apply with older kids, like with teenagers and stuff, and you would do it differently than with the younger kids. Did I get that? Did I
Yeah,
infer it correctly?
that was kind of, with my education for being an educator,
Mhm.
it's that child development and what at different stages and what they are and what's important to them. And yes, it is quite different, the
Mhm.
younger ones and the teenagers, like they're in a totally different sphere. And they're ready to start making their way in the world and as I said, their peers are so important to them. But it
Mhm.
can also be a very lonely time. And like if you could have a gardening club, then their peers
Yeah.
can be there and they've got someone to share and talk with and also like they can, if they're gardening, and one thing about gardening, it can really create an abundance.
Mhm.
That's always my wish. I mean, really, that's where I start to recognize in my life. Like it used to be more a scarcity mindset or whatever, but when with gardening, like you take a little pack of seeds and then you've got bundles and bundles of tomatoes and zucchinis and to share. So my wish is always that they can experience that abundance to share and joy and so it helps the kids, well, to be able to share and do some outreach, if there's newcomers in the neighborhood to share some of your garden goodies and there's just so much. I could go on and
Yeah.
on, you know.
Yeah. Gifting makes the connection. And as you were speaking, I remember many clients, many adults from very many different walks of life remembering and talking about having had plants or having had a garden. A person came to mind that was sharing at one point how their grandparents had a huge garden and they would gift bags of vegetables, whatever they would freeze, for later or can, and they would gift bags of vegetables, to be taken for free. And they were a hub in the community with that, during the different seasons that they were planting. So that's a very powerful, what you're creating. Yes, it teaches them to operate from abundance, not from scarcity, and to take ownership in the result of their work, which is delicious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when the kids, when they're so proud, like I grew this,
Yeah.
I produced this. And when it's them that brings it to the family table, it does wonders for their confidence and that they're contributing members now. I mean, that's big.
Yeah.
I mean, we all love our kids and everything, but they're even more valued now. They're contributing members. It's
Yes, that's very powerful, and that is impact the self-concept. And we derive that from feedback from others as well as from the result of our activity. So you're putting together two powerful pieces that will grow an adult, beyond plants, with the plants. You're growing children into adults with an internal locus of control, into adults that are grounded, like literally.
Yeah.
I love how this correlates with human development. What do you feel is the most revolutionary piece of wisdom that you bring to your track, which is unique, period?
Well, I think I would go back to the that abundance and connection to nature, and
Mhm.
getting that when the kids, they can feel more like they belong.
Mhm.
Nature, we're all part of nature. And if they can start to develop that love of nature, and like yes, I'm always talking about gardening, and such is a wonderful way for doing that. But there's other ways too, to try to instill that love of nature into the kids. And then I find, like, often nowadays they get really overwhelmed with this climate crisis, environmental crisis. And
Yeah.
I was at some meetings with there was some youth there that were speaking up, and they say, we just, there's so much of this, like, what are we to do? And it's when you can have that love of nature. And so that's why I always encourage that in your kids, instill that into your kids. And then you can let that love that you feel direct your actions. And like, I've got multitude of examples in my own life. Like, I live right in a forest, and they wanted to clear cut the forest around us. And our community pulled together that love we felt for nature, and we created an eco museum, and with the idea to preserve our forests, keep our forests intact, preserve our way of life and the historical way of life. And it was that love we felt that directed our actions, and we did get it out of the cutting plan, at least for this year anyway. So it
Oh, wow.
yeah.
What a powerful initiative. Oh, I love that. This is a way that this affects you profoundly, personally, on a personal level, to see how the community preserves the way of life. I love for the children, for
Yeah.
the generations that are coming. Have you seen such shifts triggered by, their love for gardening and their experiences with gardening in their personal life or in their relationship with their families?
It's a great bonding experience.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
especially if they are planning it all together, like, oh, what should we grow, and maybe thinking of some ideas for recipes they want to try, and, start looking through the seed catalogs, and like really a family affair. It really makes a great bonding experience, but also the conversations that can be had, when you're tending your little piece of earth, and it can open up conversations, like, to the broader idea of the earth that we live on. It's just, that's where that closeness it makes. And plus, it's just a healthier way of living. you Healthier for the planet, healthier for yourself, and it gives the kids, they've got a healthier food culture after that. When they grow it themselves, they're most likely to eat it. And as I say, when they're contributing to the family food supply, and it's fresh, nutritious food, and far better than what you can get in the store. So it, so many benefits, and it
And
just,
when you can pronounce every single word that's on your plate,
you know what it is, and that, yeah.
right?
that's
That's
so funny too with the kids, and like they just don't know where their food comes from. And someone was telling me a story of her niece, I think it was. They went out to somebody's place and they had an apple tree with apples on it. And she said, "That's funny. Apples growing on trees," because she had only seen them in the store. So it was so weird to her, but it's, yeah.
reminds me of a study done kind of in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, having children draw chicken and they knew what chicken looked like, and then 20 or 30, 28 or 30 years later, a similar study and children were drawing them
Packaged in a,
packaged or frozen or cooked with their legs up and skinned and everything. So
oh
28, 30 years made a huge difference in terms of relating to your environment. It's
yeah.
and cows and drawing them purple. This is from Europe because Milka has the purple cow with their chocolate brand. So cows being drawn in a
Purple.
complete, yeah, purple. Like they don't, they don't exist like that. But yeah, connecting to the environment, connecting to nature, this is the matrix that we also come from.
Yeah.
In different forms, it's outside of us. And if you pause and meditate on how many centuries, how many civilizations the trees around our houses have seen,
Yeah.
how many possible fights, migrations of people, changes of weather and climate. And I mean, if they could talk, I'm sure they would write encyclopedias, you know,
Yeah.
to just
Yeah.
connect with nature. And that's why when we go in nature, we recalibrate because our bodies are energy fields. The trees are energy fields. They emit, like any living being, and their mass is much larger than our mass. So being in nature, the bigger mass recalibrates, rebalances the smaller masses. It's everything about nature, everything that you do is very inspiring to me because in different words, you are teaching psychotherapy. You are training brain development. You are, and very, thoroughly and very specifically. So I'm taking everything in. I would have 1,000 questions. Let me just stick with, with interviewing you. I'm loving this.
I
Um,
think we might even wrap it up with that as the gardening grandma as the psychotherapist.
And yes, and actually, let me wrap it up with emotional regulation, because gardening, it certainly takes time, to grow from a seed into a tomato plant or salad or a tree, even longer, right? So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about how gardening teaches patience and resilience because of seasonal changes, and how that correlates with the children's emotional regulation skills.
Well, one thing like being in the garden for stress release and whatever, like, and anxieties, it can let it go. And like the kids, again, there's so much anxiety in the kids these days. And when they can be in the ground working with the living things, having living things being reliant on them, learning that, and that what it is to be responsible for living things. It's a big thing, and but also working in the ground. There's actually scientific studies that it produces. I've got the right hormone, serotonin, I think it was.
Yeah.
That is like the happy hormone.
Yes.
But people often think of it as their happy place, and like it's
Yeah.
almost like, to me, it's almost like a meditative practice as you're quietly tending your plants and seeding and weeding, and you get to slow down, and same like with the kids, like it's everything else can fall away. You're focused on here on your plants. And that's with starting off, if they're growing something, they want to be growing, they know that, it's worth the effort. It's worth waiting and nurturing and that they're going to be rewarded from their efforts and with all those lovely garden goodies and know that you earn things instead of just thinking that it should be instant gratification and there's something about that too that teaches kids, a little effort and you can have good results. A little
Yeah.
patience, it's well worth that waiting when you get lots of garden goodies and
Yeah.
yeah. So
And it's so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. There was
And it's a relationship that you're developing as well with this living being.
yeah,
For me, I've experienced that when I had my own plants and trees that I grew. But you're developing a relationship in the clearest sense with a living being. And I'm speaking in terms of there's a social experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with it, with two identical plants being placed in the entrance of an educational institution. And one of the plants, that's quite traumatic if we were in the shoes of a plant. I sometimes think our salad yells like, help, they're eating me. Take care of yourself. But that's me. But the two plants where one of them was, addressed with praise words, the same amount of light, the same amount of water, but the energy was different. And the other one, that's quite traumatic, was cursed at, or, critical words and mean and negative and bullying and stuff. And within weeks, the difference between the two plants was very telling. One of them grew and developed, and you could see new growth, like green and as well. And the other one, completely died.
yeah,
So it is a relationship. The living world connects through energy and through resonance, and that, regardless of the language, right? We are building a relationship with the living world.
yeah. And it's that energy that what you're putting into your food, is
Yeah.
what you're going to get back to and like with the kids, like there's a lot of magic happening in gardening too. To me, it's all a miracle. But
Mhm.
the one of the things, the greatest things I tell them is the vigilance in the garden. So you're going each day and checking your plants and I know for myself, like when I'm like in the winter, especially like I've got an indoor garden because it's so cold here for so long. So I have a large indoor garden too, but each day you're checking on your plants, make sure they got enough water, that that there's no bugs invading, that, they're looking good. It's almost like you're talking to them. I don't verbally talk to them, but I am. I'm possession that, that I care about them and that's and like with my tomato plants when they're indoors you've got to shake the flowers so they'll produce fruit and it's that whole caring and nurturing and
Yeah.
you will see if your plants thrive and if you neglect them,
Yeah.
not so much.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. I loved this conversation, Patrice, and I hope we'll get to do many more coming. Thank you for sharing this powerful. This is human development here, translated into gardening words.
Yeah,
I
who knew,
love,
eh?
I love I love your track and the uniqueness of your personal brand and how you blended that with your professional experience. So yeah, thank you for your time, for the information, the wisdom, and I hope to see more parents take to an interaction with the nature, growing your food and teaching children to do this for this embodiment and emotional regulation that this brings.
Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful interviewing. Well, we will connect more for sure.
For sure. Take care. See you later.